Hi, I'm Deboki and this is Okie Dokie Boki, and today I am going to be talking about all the books that I have checked out from the library right now. I have never done this kind of video before, and I have also done zero planning for this video because I was just like this morning, I was like, well, I'm gonna film one video. I usually try to film two in one go, but I don't have another thing scripted right now. So I guess why not try to do this? We'll see. The most preparation I have done is that I have gathered all of the library books in the house and put them on the ground next to me. So there is some reason for this video. There's recently been some kind of conversations going on about consumerism on booktube. This is a conversation that pops up every so often, usually around hauls and around whether or not we should be talking about what people spend their money on, all of this stuff. So I was on a live stream that Mari was hosting over on My Name is Mari Nez. She had this live stream discussion with us about books and consumerism and all that stuff. And in general, I've talked about plenty of times, including recently on the Bougie Booktuber tag, I mostly read books from the library and I don't really buy that many books. My buying has increased in this past year, but mostly I check out books from the library. And so I also usually don't do hauls. The most I've done is at the end of 2017, I did sort of a retrospective on all of the books that I had bought that year. And that was something that I originally intended to kind of do every year. But I think the last 2 years I haven't, probably just because I think things were a little chaotic for me. But this year I'm actually planning to do that video. So we will see at the end of the year, how all of my book buying habits have kind of shaken out in terms of have I actually read all of this stuff? The answer is probably gonna be no. But anyways, one of the things that came up in that live stream discussion that we talked about was just sort of I don't know, be kind of maybe more conspicuous about the things that you get from the library. People will mention if they're reviewing a book that they checked out from the library, they will specifically say that I got this book from the library. And that is something that I had never for some reason really thought about before. It seems so obvious in retrospect, but I just haven't done that. And it's not something that I really feel still any kind of insistence on, but I do like the idea of at least I don't know, talking about the things that you get from the library. And obviously people do library hauls and I just haven't really done that many haul videos. So or really any, again, the closest I've done is that sort of end of year wrap up of everything I've bought. But I just figured what the hell, I'm gonna give it a go. We're gonna see how this goes. Basically, I think a lot of people during the pandemic, my library habits have been weird, right? Because for a long time my library was shut down and so all I could do was get books through the Overdrive system, which I'm really, really lucky to live in Massachusetts where when I was living in Boston, I had access to a lot of books, and then now I live in Western Massachusetts, and even though it is a little bit more rural and spread out, it's really nice because we have a consortium of libraries that makes it so that I have access to a lot of books still. And so even through Overdrive, sometimes I get books way faster here than I did in Boston because there's still plenty of books, but there's less competition for it. So I feel pretty lucky. So when lockdown started, I was getting most of my books through Overdrive, and then everything opened up again. And I definitely did the thing where I was I gotta get all of the books that I've been wanting to read. I gotta get them checked out from the library. And so I have been placing, maybe some would say, too many holds at the library, and every week I'm getting a call to go pick up some more books. And again, lucky to have a really good curbside pickup system with the library, so that has been making it easier. But at this point, I think I have 12 books checked out from the library. And so I wanna go through them all and just see how I'm doing, because I don't think it's very good. I've got some wine in a salsa jar and we're gonna go through my reading. So like I said, I have 12 books currently checked out. I'm going through my computer and seeing what the status of my holds are. I have 3 more books. Ooh, this is exciting. I've got a new one that's in transit. I've had 2 in transit for 2 weeks now, it feels like, but there's a 3rd one now. But I think because of all of the sanitation stuff that they're doing, transit is taking a while, which fair enough. I want my librarians to be able to feel safe and comfortable. So I can be patient, and I have to be patient because I've got 12 other books sitting next to me that I need to read. So I don't get why I'm being so impatient, because the longer these books take to come in, the more reasonable my reading will be. But yeah, so I have 3 more books that are in transit, and then I have 4 more books that I am still waiting to get in. I think there are 3 kind of overarching categories of books that I've been checking out. The first is a bunch of nature writing kind of stuff. The second is story oriented stuff. So that tends to be YA and fantasy, I think. And the third, oh, and romance. And so like, I guess maybe you would just call that genre kind of stuff. And then the third is maybe like literary fiction, things that I'm reading, in part because I know that the writing is supposed to be really good and also that they're going to make me kind of sad because right now I guess that is also what I'm in the mood for. So that is apparently what my trend has been. And so I am just going to go through this. Originally I was going to do it like, I was like, when I like did my like 3 seconds of planning for this video, I was going to like split it up into those categories, but like I've got a pile next to me. But like, yeah, I've just got like this pile going on. So we're just gonna go through that. So again, I don't really do hauls that often and I don't watch them that often. So I don't know what the expectation is in terms of me getting fully into what these books are about. But like, I am not personally planning to get very in-depth on the book summaries. I'm just going to talk a little bit more loosely about why I'm interested in reading them. So I apologize in advance if that's what you're expecting, because this is not my forte. But so the first book that I'm picking up from this pile is H is for Hawk by Helen Macdonald. This is a memoir, and I believe it's about like this time that she was training a hawk that was really hard to train. This is like one of those books that I think like everyone who's read it has basically loved it from what I've seen. Like I know Olive at a Book Olive has talked about it a lot and it just sounds like it has really beautiful writing and is also like one of those kind of like spectacular kind of nature writing kind of books. Helen Macdonald also has a new book out. It's a collection of essays called Vesper Flights, and I love essay collections. I also love science writing and nature writing, and like I've been like wanting to find some essay collections that kind of combine the two. So that book is part of why I'm also like intending to finally read H is for Hawk, because I want some good nature writing. Next up is Underland, A Deep Time Journey by Robert McFarland. I actually picked this up with Overstory, which I'm gonna get to down below, because apparently that is deeper in my pile. And I had actually seen the publisher, W.W. Norton, in their catalog. They had kind of like talked about these two books being sort of like complements to each other. My sense of this book is that it is about the ground under our feet, about all of the shit going on that we cannot see because it is underneath us, which is a thing that like I had not really thought that much about until like more recently and like learned about like stuff going on in soil and everything. It also sounds from the summary like it's going to be getting kind of into some maybe like more like, I don't know, humanistic things that we've done around this idea of like the underworld, about like burial rites and stuff like that. So I'm really intrigued by it. I've read the first couple pages and just to kind of like get a sense for what it is. This is also due next week and I do not think I'm going to be reading it before then, just because like right now it doesn't feel quite like what I'm in the mood for. It seems like a book that I'm gonna wanna be able to kind of like sit down with and process, and I think rushing it in a week is not gonna work. So this has been on the back burner for me because I checked it out a while ago, but I am strongly suspecting that I'm gonna actually end up buying it because the few pages that I read, I was like very intrigued by it. I was very intrigued by the writing. So this is one of those cases of like, we'll see if I just kind of like work through a few chapters this week just to kind of get more of a sense and decide kind of like what to do from there. Next up, Severance by Ling Ma. I am currently reading this and I am also currently pausing this because today is what, September 19th, and this is definitely in the category of books that I'm reading because it has gotten a lot of acclaim, and also because I want to feel sometimes a little bit bleak about the world. Right now, I don't really feel like feeling bleak. Like RBG has just died. I need like a few moments of break from feeling fully settled into bleakness to kind of just recalibrate, I guess. And so I've started reading it. It's set during a pandemic, right? Like, and I knew that going in. I did not fully know what kind of pandemic situation we were going on. I love that it's got a fungus pandemic. I'm really into fungi right now, because of like work stuff and Mexican Gothic. So like, I'm really, really enjoying that. This is definitely like a disaffected millennial kind of book where like a girl moves to New York City and becomes kind of like a little bit miserable in that very New York way, but like in a way that I also find really intriguing, enjoy reading. And yeah, so I am liking this book. I am like about halfway through, so I think I'll finish it next week after I've kind of taken a few days to enjoy some like things that feel a little bit more like plotty and story-oriented. Like right now that is sort of like where my headspace is at, but I'm definitely going to be returning to this and finishing this pretty soon because I am enjoying it. I just got my copy of Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. I am very, very, very excited to read this. I've heard so many good things. You know, Audrey at Perpetual Pages has been talking so much about this book, and I am just so excited to have a copy. Finally, I watched this be in transit for so long. Like every day I was checking my like my little thing, my holds thing, the way that like, you know, when you're getting a package and you're like constantly refreshing the UPS page to be like, Are you here yet? Are you here yet? Are you here yet? This book I'm probably gonna read today because I'm just really excited to kind of sit down with a story and just like enjoy a whole arc play out, like a plot. Like I need a plot right now, you know? And Severance is really good, but like it's not like, it's more of a character book than it is like a plot driven book. Like obviously it has a plot, but you know what I mean? I'm just really happy about the success of this book. I think especially like because I associate it so much with like people in booktube whose content I really love. Like I'm particularly like happy in that regard, and also for the author and like for everyone who feels really seen by the book. I'm like really excited for them, and I am also excited for me because I finally have the copy from the library and I can read it. So next up is Sylvia Moreno Garcia's Signal to Noise, which I'm really excited to read just because I'm excited to read more of Garcia's work. I've really enjoyed Mexican Gothic and Gods of Jade and Shadow. I'm really intrigued by the fact that she seems to be writing in like a pretty like diverse range of genres, and I'm into the way that she writes in particular. I'm like really like into the way that like she sets her stories up and the kinds of characters she creates. I'm really into all of that. So I don't know that much about this book. I'm just working my way through whatever books of hers I can find at the library, and like when I read them, that's gonna be when I know what they're about. Next up is a book that I'm not sure I'm gonna get to read. Kind of like Underland, but I'm not actually sure if I'm ever gonna read this one. This is You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogel. I think I've seen Mina over at Mina Reads talk about this book, and I think she really, really enjoyed it, and I've seen other people who really, really love this book. So I think that will be the thing. Like if I do end up reading this book, it'll be because I want like a romancy kind of story. I want something kind of plotty, and because I know other people have really enjoyed it. I just know that like from reading the first few pages, like I had a kind of like a hard time getting into the character. I know this is, but like this is also like a book about like mending a broken relationship, which is the thing that I actually really, really enjoy and haven't read as much of as I want to in romance. But I also know that kind of the premise for that to happen, you're gonna have to like watch two characters kind of like be shitty before you like watch them be good. And I've also seen people say that, like I think I saw on Twitter someone said like that they had gotten to a point early on in this book where they thought they were gonna DNF it, and then they ended up like going through it and were like so glad that they stuck with it. So I will maybe give this a chance, but I don't know, you know? Like if you've read this book and you think I should give it a chance, let me know, because like I'm guessing that this is gonna be one of those books that I read like in a day or two, so like I think it'll be kind of a fun thing to stick through. But otherwise it might be something that I just end up returning to the library and then checking out like at a much later date when I actually feel like in the mood for it. Okay, next one, The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I feel like I've had sort of like a weird personal history with this book that I have never read. Part of why I've been intrigued by it is because Chakraborty is also my last name. I spell it differently because there are many, many spellings of it. So initially when I saw this name, like I was like, yes, like it's a Chakraborty out in the world. And so like that is like a thing that has been on my mind, but also like I sometimes when I get hyped for a book in that way, I also get really nervous about it. And so I've been kind of waiting for like, I didn't really intend to wait for all the books to come out, but like I know that I think all of the books are out now and people have been really like enjoying the series. So I was like, well, fine, okay. Like I'm feeling like there are times when I'm gonna want something kind of like fantasy-ish and like we'll see how that goes. A lot of people whose like opinions I respect have really enjoyed this book, and so in this series overall, and I know like when the last book came out, everyone was super, super hyped for it. So I'm gonna see how this works for me, and hopefully it works out pretty well. Next up is like another like story-oriented kind of thing. This is Wicked As You Wish by Rin Chupeco. I have read several of her books and enjoyed some and had a harder time with others. I really, really love the Girl from the Well series, the one that's like inspired by The Ring, or that whole like story. And then I read, what is it called? Gotta Google. The Bone Witch, yes. So I read The Bone Witch and did not get into it. I might give it another chance because I feel like there are elements of that book that like I should really enjoy. And so like maybe I just like wasn't in the right, I don't know, space to enjoy it at that time. And so yeah, the point is that I have had like a mixed history, and so I'm curious about this. I really love the cover. I think it's a really cute cover, and I know that it's just like about magic fantasy people who get stuck in Arizona, of all places. Okay, so next up we've got a book that I've actually read, and this is like more in that kind of like nature writing category. Again, I checked this out with the Underland, but this is The Overstory by Richard Powers, and I am going to be doing a review of this because I have thoughts, and like this is like, so when I said that I like wanted to film 2 videos today, the other video that I would have filmed would have been a review of this book. And it is going to be coming, but I need to spend a little bit of time like actually writing my thoughts out, because like I need to figure out what my thoughts are first off. And also like this is like a book that, because it's literary fiction, sorry, let me explain briefly. This book is about people and trees. Mostly it's about trees, but it's like about loving trees, and it's about people who should love trees or don't realize yet that they love trees, or who will one day love trees, or who will fight for trees, die for trees, all of the shit around trees. They will do the tree thing together or separately, whatever. We're all part of one world, so it's all together. That is, I think, what this book is about personally. Trees with like a smattering of people. This is why I need to write down my thoughts first before I get into this book, because my feelings on this book are complicated by a lot of things, like including the fact that this is like the type of literary fiction that I do not personally read that often. And so like, it's one of those books that is really hard for me to read and talk about without getting really caught up in like, am I getting it? Like, did I just like not get something? This is, I will say, I'm going to repeat this in my review. This is a book that when I wasn't reading it, I had a really hard time picking it up. But when I was reading it, I had a really hard time putting it down. Like, it is very readable, and the writing in it is really, really beautiful. And it was very like, I enjoyed it while I was reading it. But in terms of like the overall construction, there are also some things about it that I find a little bit confusing. And not confusing like I don't understand or get something, but like that, or, I mean, maybe actually that's part of it, but also like there are choices made that I don't, for what I feel like the goal of this book is, like don't completely track for me. So I'm going to be getting to this pretty soon in a review. So if you want to leave me some of your thoughts, feel free to down below, because this is one of those books that I think is really interesting to talk to people about, because I know so many people have had a really strong positive response to this book, and I totally get it. I think it's a book that really does like make you look at trees differently. And so it's just, yeah, the trees are beautiful. That's what I'll say about it. It has beautiful trees. And we're going to talk about the rest soon. Next up is Lobizona by Romina Garber. I have been really intrigued by this book. I know it's about, the main character's name is Manuela Azul. She is an undocumented immigrant who is dealing like with ICE coming in and breaking up her family, and then also she finds out supernatural things that are part of her family's history. So this for me is like sort of like very much in line with that, like I want kind of a story sort of thing. And I think for me especially, like I know that one of the major like gaping holes in my reading is reading more Latinx characters, and like Latinx is also such a broad like category that like can cover so many different cultures and so many different experiences that I want to be like expanding, like so that it's not just like the same author over and over again or anything like that. So like I've been reading Silvia Moreno Garcia, but I don't want her to be like my personal end all be all for all Latinx books like in general, because that would be very bad. that would not be a productive reading life. So I've been intrigued by this book. I'm interested in the way that it's like combining like, you know, all of these real life issues and combines them with these supernatural elements, because I think that is like the most interesting thing that can happen. Next up, the other book of this 12 books that I have read, that I read last night, is The Magnolia Sword. This is by Sherry Thomas. It is a YA retelling of Mulan. People have been talking about this book a lot recently because of the movie release that happened, which I have not watched, but I know that it was disappointing to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. So I had just seen so many people talking about this book that I was like, you know what? It's time. It's time for me to check it out. And I read this all last night again, because right now I'm currently in that story mood. I got this from the library yesterday and was like immediately like, yes, this is what I need to read right now. And I really, really enjoyed it. I realized after that I have read some of Sherry Thomas's other books, and I have sort of like some mixed experiences with them. I think some of them I've kind of enjoyed. I remember the first time I read her Lady Sherlock series, I think the first book, I had a hard time getting into it. But based on how much I enjoyed this book, I'm thinking about revisiting it because I think, again, it might be sort of similar to The Bone Witch, where like maybe my expectations for what it was like weren't like in line with what it was going to be, and I got kind of distracted by that. Or it could be that I just genuinely didn't like it, but I won't know until I give it another chance. And like this book was really, really good, and is the kind of book that like makes me want to give it another chance. The romance in here is like very much my cup of tea, where it's like two characters who like understand each other very, very well. Like it is that kind of book where like two characters can technically be lying to each other and to themselves, but they're not, you know, because everyone knows each other better than they think they do, or maybe than the other person thinks they do. And so it's the kind of book that's built on two characters like really getting each other and kind of working from there, which is super my shit. This has that like elements of that. It has a lot of other elements that I thought was really, really interesting. I really enjoyed the history and all of that got like woven in. So I did enjoy this book, and I think if you're looking for something in like a Mulan retelling, or like something that again is like very plot heavy right now, I would definitely recommend this book. The last book I'm going to be talking about is Real Life by Brandon Taylor, and this is sort of like in that Severance category of like books that like have gotten a lot of acclaim. This has been shortlisted for the Booker, so like clearly plenty of acclaim going on there. But also like I know that this is probably going to be a book that's going to make me like feel a little bit like bummed, feels like dismissive, because I know that this is both about like I think he's like the main character in this book is dealing with grief, I think dealing with the death of a parent, and he is also queer and Black in a biochemistry program in school. So I'm assuming there is going to be a lot of stuff about how shitty it is sometimes to study science when you're coming from a marginalized background. That biochemistry element is for me like a big factor of like why I'm interested in this book. So I'm probably gonna get to this like pretty soon after Severance, because I think this is sort of like a high priority for me. But if I don't read it, it'll probably just be because something else awful happened. I had to replace my card, and while I was like switching that out, I checked my email, and I actually have another hold that just came in online on Overdrive. So I actually now do have an Overdrive hold, and I might postpone it because again, I've got all these books, but A Memory Called Empire came in, and so I've heard really good things about that book as well. So, I mean, the reason why I checked all of these books out is because I have heard good things about them, and at the time that I was like putting things on hold, I was like, well, who knows when I will ever get a book again. Okay, so let's summarize, more for my sake than for any of yours, unless you guys are like deeply invested in what I'm gonna read, which is possible you are, because I guess that is what booktube is like all of us getting invested in each other's reading. But I've checked out currently 12 physical books from the library. I have finished 2 of them. I finished the Overstory, and I finished Magnolia Sword. I'm gonna have a review of the Overstory for you guys at some point, so that is a thing on my accountability checklist that I'm gonna regret saying out loud. Then after that, I'm gonna read today, hopefully, Cemetery Boys. That is the goal for my weekend reading. And then on top of that, I am going to, what am I gonna do? Oh, I'm gonna read Severance this week. Gonna finish Severance this week unless I give myself like some break from it. And if I give myself a break for it, I'm probably gonna read like maybe Lobizona, or maybe City of Brass. Probably those will be the ones that I decide between. I gotta get to that nature shit. I gotta get to the Helen McDonald. The problem is not that I have too many books. The problem is that I don't have enough time. That is actually the problem. So yeah, if you have read any of these books and you want to make a case for them to like prioritize any of them in particular, definitely let me know. And if you hate this video, if you love this video, let me know what it is that you hate or love about it. I may or may not do this again. I do like the idea of checking in on what I'm checking out from the library so that I'm like thinking about what I want to read and when I want to read it and all that shit. But I don't know that I will do this super regularly. But maybe if there's like a fun conversation to be had, we'll see. We'll see if I figure out how to do this well, and if not, we'll see how to do it badly. You've already seen how to do it badly. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you guys for watching, and let me know your thoughts down below. Bye.